What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Red Room Podcast. Today, I have a really cool family member with me. We've been cousins for as long as I can remember. Matthew Golden. What's up, dude?
I'm happy to be your first guest. You know, I know you've been talking about doing this for a while, and you know, if I can be your first guest, then I'd be more than happy to get it started with you.
We're on 17 now.
Okay.
Yeah, 17, 18. Right
Well, he told me I was going to be his first guest, so I drove all the way out here, and you know, but 17, okay, that's fine too.
That's fine too. Well, yeah, we just had your lovely fiance on, Margot.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for the invite to Disneyland. That was fun to get to share that moment with you and everything.
Absolutely. And actually, I was waiting for a good moment to ask you this, but I want you to be one of the men of honor at our wedding.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Appreciate it, cuz. Of course, I got you. I got you. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to have a big, Armenian-themed wedding, so I do need some people to lift me up on that chair, so, you know,
I got you,
You
man.
may have to start going to the gym, you know, to get me up on that chair.
I got you, dude. That's what all that's for. Yeah. No, dude, thank you so much. That's cool, man.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. That'll be fun. That'll be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
So where are you guys right now, like in the planning process? So you got a venue.
I'm kind of staying out of it. I'm just kind of letting them, you know, I only have a couple demands.
What are the
for
demands?
The wedding?
What are the demands?
You know, open bar, obviously.
You have to.
Yeah.
Open bar is definitely.
Open bar and cigar lounge area.
Yes.
Those are my two, you know, kind of demands. Other than that, you know, well, and no Disney theming.
No Disney theme?
No Disney.
No Disney?
So.
Yeah.
And I have had to kind of shut down some Disney things so far. So.
Looks behind camera.
Yeah.
See if she's like doing okay. Like your mouth's just like dropped. No Disney.
Only 3 demands.
Only 3 demands.
I'm pretty easy, but you know, it's just I'm just gonna let my mom, Margot, and Margot's mom just kind of plan it, and then I'm sure it'll be, you know, a great time no matter what.
Yeah. You just show up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
just
what
show
I
up.
wanted.
Yeah.
Let them handle it.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
You've been thinking about this moment for your whole entire life. Well, take it. You know, I'll show up and you know we'll do the bit. We'll do the bit.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I'm just happy to be getting married. So that's all I need, and you know, an open bar and cigar.
Open bar and cigars. So, yes, 100%.
Just those.
100%.
Just those things.
Well, dude. Okay, whenever Mrs. Ward pops up, I will return that to you. You know, always, you know.
You might meet her there. You never know.
You never know.
That
is true.
So
that is true. The hunt is on.
Well, now that you're going to be
I'm the last guy. Like I was saying.
You're the last guy, but you're also going to be a man of honor. So you're going to have to be walking one of these ladies down the aisle.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
And I know a couple of them are single, so there might be some matchmaking going on behind the scenes. That's how the Armenians like to kind of do things sometimes.
already have it all matched up and everything.
Exactly. So
all right,
we'll see. It might happen sooner than you think.
Yeah. I'll play ball. I'll play ball. So how is Visalia? How is living like out in the Central Valley? Because I also want to talk to you about your work and like, you know, and what you do and everything like that too. So like, what's life like out there?
So comparing it to LA, which is where I lived before I moved to Visalia, no traffic. So I love that. It's a lot hotter. There's a lot of pollution in the air, but I love it. I mean, I actually do like it because, you know, when you live in LA, if you want to go somewhere that should take 20 minutes, it's going to take you an hour to get
100%.
there. And in Visalia, it's just, you know, I could drive, you know, an hour uninterrupted straight, not one car in front of me, just the whole way. So no traffic. After living in LA, that's all I care about is I don't want to deal with traffic ever again.
Yeah.
So, you get so much time back. It's actually incredible when you go from the LA lifestyle commuting all the time that, you actually end up getting about 2 to 3 hours back every day.
Yeah.
And that's really priceless actually is travel time, I think. So,
yeah, no, I'm with you. During COVID, when I was living in Culver City, I had a screenwriting team out in the valley, like in Van Nuys, and literally I could get from Culver to Van Nuys in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It was nuts. Just like no one was on the road and you could just, but of course in normal LA time, that's, an hour and a half,
right.
Maybe 2.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's cool. So less traffic. And then like, what do you let's tell everyone what you do for work. And
so I do 2 things. I work for an export company called Umina Brothers, and, we're in the business of exporting, fresh fruit and vegetable overseas, primarily fruit though. And then my other job, really started maybe, I want to say a little over 12 months ago. And now I'm in the self-storage business. So basically, we're starting out boats, trailers, RVs, if you don't have somewhere to store it, basically we'll take those in and store them for you. And actually soon we're going to be having storage units available.
Oh, cool.
So that's really the next step. And, from what I've found is it's a little stickier. If you're storing someone's vehicle at any time, they can just move out and drive out. But if you're renting them an 8x20, 8x10 storage unit with all their stuff, they ultimately are going to have to pack all that up to move out. So it's a little stickier in terms of, losing customers based on pricing or things of that nature. But I think it's going to be a great business because kind of the way I've set it up is I'm able to manage it remotely. So the sign up process, signing the lease, everything, filling in your information, it's all online. I basically just have to review the leases and, see what they're storing.
Yeah.
So by doing that, we don't have to have someone there all day long, just sitting in an office waiting for someone to drive up. So that keeps the cost down and lets us be a little more competitive on pricing. And, as in terms of, I know you do real estate, a lot of people are buying houses to live in them, but some people are buying houses as an investment, right? So they're buying a house, they're going to rent it out to somebody. And then, the guy didn't pay you. So now you're stuck in this eviction process for months on end trying to get rid of this guy. Storage business, you don't pay, I put a lien on your property and I'm going to auction it off. So totally different business, but a lot easier to manage in some ways. But depending on your personality type, it can be harder in some ways because, if you have that soft spot in you, then you're going to, feel bad, I guess, about auctioning that. But it's the same as renting out a house, really, that, you have to move on. It's a business, financial decision. So
yeah. How's that all going? So just for reference, I filmed your guys' property,
right.
Did that whole video thing, and you got a lot of land there for all the storage stuff out there. And it's off Highway 55?
Highway 6, it's 65, the name of 65. Highway 65. The name of the business is actually Highway 65 Open Storage. So if you're in the Porterville, Visalia area and you need some storage, $50 a month, 14 by 40. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Nice little plug.
Yeah.
That's what's
and
up.
It's highway65openstorage.com.
There you go.
Check it out.
We'll put it in the description. We'll put it in the description. So what's it like right now? I mean, well, the first question is, you obviously you get that video done, and then where do you go? How do you get like people? Did you get a sign up by the freeway to get people to come in, or like how are you getting people to like come see you?
Okay. That's an interesting question because I basically tried everything short of doing a television commercial. Did radio. I've gone to events in town, promoted it. But what I found is, just from customer feedback, the most effective thing is just having the sign on the fences. So we're right along the freeway. So I just put up 6, 7 signs saying, with our phone number, the pricing, which putting the pricing, was that a mistake? In the long run, maybe, because I'm going to have to remake those signs eventually. But that's what has been the most effective, because everybody constantly saying, hey, I saw your sign. I saw your sign. The radio is probably, for the country radio station for a month. And it was, I think, 30 mentions a day, basically like commercials. It was about 7,500 for that. And then the local Mexican radio station, even bigger mistake because I don't really speak Spanish. And I did get one call for that, but it was kind of dicey trying to, I ended up just using ChatGPT and Google Translate to kind of, get them in there.
Yeah.
But
got to do what you got to do.
Got to do what you got to do. And that was 2,500. So, that's a big marketing expense. So really the best thing I found was the fences, the signage, and then Google ad spend. Those two things are really the only two things that I found were really worth it. And then word of mouth, obviously, that's the other big one, treating the customers with respect and, not, giving them a hard time. If they're going to be a couple days late on the rent, I just, you don't need to be rude to them. Just, work through it with them. Because really we're not in the auctioning business, because if you really want to dive into that, when you, the lien process, auctioning process, as the facility, I don't get that full amount. Like you watch Storage Wars and you see them, auctioning off units, and it could start at 100, but they think they see something nice in the back and it starts going up to maybe a couple thousand. Ultimately, the balance, everything that the expenses I haven't already incurred, I don't get to collect. So I can charge for the advertising fee, the auctioning fee, any of the back rent that they owe, but anything over that ends up going back to the client, the person who is storing there. So really you're kind of like selling it for them, which I thought was kind of interesting, but I get it also because it kind of, it keeps things fair on both sides. But, the downside of that is if you auction something and it doesn't even sell, then you take that hit. So there's no way to really balance that out when you really start having a lot of these situations happen. So you're basically just recouping your initial costs. So
do you ever, or have you had to worry about people like going in there and like trying to like live in like
I've had a lot of people ask for sure. But I've never had anyone actually, I just make it clear with them that you can't do that. And, we're using cameras with AI built into them where it can detect any movement in there. And there's, a whole alarm system where if someone's even moving around in there at night, sirens are going off. So it really wouldn't be possible to live in there. But I've definitely had a lot of people ask.
Yeah,
for sure. And I've had a lot of people who were living in their trailer or their RV, and then basically they're now in some situation where they need to store it, but to them that's their home. So they, it might not to you or me look like a lot, in terms of like, why would you even want to store that thing?
Yeah.
But to them, it's their whole world, and they'll pay rent on that for years potentially.
Yeah.
Where really they should probably just get rid of it. But I get it. People get sentimental about things, and, it got them through a hard time, so they want to keep it. So, haven't had anyone try to live there. luckily. But I have had a lot of people ask
Yeah.
for sure. A lot of people.
So last time I was there, and I haven't seen it in a minute, but you had like a dirt area, and then you had like the concrete area, or the asphalt. Where are you? These storage units, where are you trying to like put them? And then how many are you trying to put down?
So basically we have like what I call it is the commercial area. You know, one half of it's DG and one's oiled, basically. So it's black and gray. The gray area is the commercial area, which is where I'll have, you know, I had a whole circus come in.
Really?
They rented 15 spaces from me. Wow. Just the circus, yeah. So that was a great customer. I've had picking contractors come in. They can range. They'll say, okay, I want 4 spaces to 10 spaces. And they'll usually come in seasonally depending on the crop. So the storage units, they're going to go into that commercial area.
How many are you looking to like put in there?
I mean, in the long run, until I can't fill them up.
Yeah. Because
that's actually the better business, I think, in the long run. It's more expensive to get set up though. But the customer base is a lot stickier if you can get them in there. And I'm just, you know, going off of past conversations I've had at the Self-Storage Association trade show. They say the bigger the unit, you know, it might take longer to get it rented. But once you get someone in there, they never leave. Because they have so much stuff in there that they would basically have to rent a U-Haul truck or something to get it out. And, you know, a lot of the time it'll be Christmas decorations. It could be, you know, a business that they set up. Maybe they moved to a smaller home, or they're just simply, you know, their wife's making them get rid of all their stuff, but they don't want to, you know, throw it away or sell it. So, you know, in the long run, I think I've seen other places out there. We could probably fill that whole commercial area with storage units. But, you know, it's for now, just get the, you know, the vehicle storage business rolling, let that income pay for the storage units and just kind of let it grow organically. Because, you know, everything has its risk, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know, I just think, you know, when it comes to the storage units, it's a space that I do think is actually being overbuilt at the moment. When you go to these trade shows and you kind of see the vibe, or even if you just kind of look around town, you just see them going up everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things where it's going to be a bubble that bursts eventually, and only the businesses that have really got a base that is sticky are going to survive. Like 5x5s, 5x10s, you know, that's for people to store their Christmas decorations, and you could take all of that stuff in the back of a pickup truck, move to a new location, no problem. And when the price wars start in a town, I think you could end up losing your entire customer base over a new facility popping up in your town. So
with that, kind of like with real estate, you know, when we go to sell a house, we pull up like a, you know, CMA and just kind of look at what the market is doing, you know, to correctly price the home. So I'm assuming, you know, putting 2 and 2 together, you have to do the same thing with that. So when you're going to these trade shows, are you like looking at price? You looking at like what kind of like, you know, like boxes they're using? Like what are you looking for? Like how do you go judging into like stay competitive?
So what the big guys are doing, and we're by no means the big guys, what the guys with 100 facilities are doing, is they'll actually look at the demographic of the entire town. And, you know, you can see which houses are being built, what developments are planned to go in, the zoning, you know, the average income of those people. And they'll drop their facility right in the middle. You know, they'll set a radius around where they want the facility. And if it doesn't meet their criteria, they won't do it. But I think that's been getting loosened a little bit because it's just such a hyped up, you know, real estate commodity right now is the self-storage. And I think a lot of that is because for these, when these big financial entities get involved, they don't want to deal with evictions. They don't want to deal with people's rights, basically. In the self-storage space,
that all kind of,
it doesn't really exist. It's like you didn't pay your rent, you're out. You're not living, it's no one's living there. So you're not really like affecting their entire life if they can't store their stuff there. It's just kind of like, it's time for you to find somewhere else to put your stuff.
So, because I'm ignorant in it. So, like for Storage Wars, for example, these are people that just don't pay their rent for that space, and then like it gets like auctioned off. I mean, do they have like a certain time limit to come get their stuff? And if they just ignore it, then it's yours. So is that it?
It'll all be in the lease. It's all drawn out in the lease, and there's minimum timelines to where you can start that process. And I mean, you could set it longer if you wanted to for whatever reason. But a lot of people just put it at the minimum and just get them out, move on. But yeah, Storage Wars is basically people who, they might be 2 months behind on their rent. So they have to begin that process. And the real corporate places, I don't even think they try to resolve it with the customer a lot of the time. They just say, you're 2 months behind, you're out. We don't want you anymore. But I mean, I've had a number of people who've been behind, but I always just try to work with them and just say, call them. And, it's sometimes they're having a crisis going on in their life. Their cell phone got lost and their credit card got lost. And that's why it's off auto bill pay, is just their whole life so thrown off because someone broke into their car and stole their phone and their wallet. I've had that happen. Or that's what they've told me. And, as long as they resolve it, it's not really a problem.
Yeah.
But then I've had people who, I had one guy who he basically, as far as I know, passed away. Yeah. And that was a whole nother process to, kind of basically resolve that. But
what'd you have to do? You have to like dig in, find who his family is, and be like, hey, here's his stuff.
Basically
his family.
His family gets involved and they just took over the lease basically.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, you hear the gambit of stories.
Do you have to do that? Do you have to like reach out? Is there like a law, or is that just the kindness out of your heart? Like, I mean, if like the, if it's just, you know what I mean? Like if it's like, oh, well, do you have to make those calls?
As far as I know, and I don't want to be giving legal advice to anyone, but the only time you have to is if they're active military. And that's one of the main things you'll hear storage attorneys constantly talking about is make sure in your lease and make sure your leasing agents make it very clear when you're asking people, are you active military? Because basically if, I have an active military who's overseas and, he just can't get in contact with me because he's fighting a war or, on a naval vessel and they're not even allowed to be communicating. Basically, there's a process to reach out to their commanding officers to kind of figure out what's going on. And usually, from what I understand, they kind of force the issue with them, like, hey, pay your bill, like what's going on? But yeah, if you auction off an active military's personal items while they're overseas, like it's like a felony. Like you'll go to like prison basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I always make sure to ask that. And for the most part, I always just, if it takes me 10 calls to get a hold of them because I can't get a hold of this individual, I mean, I'll just keep calling them. Like, you just call them like every day till they answer. Like even earlier today, I had a guy finally call me back who I've been trying to get a hold of for a month and a half. So,
wow.
They usually leave it till the last minute. And really the way I see it is the whole lien and auction thing is just kind of a way to like get people's attention a little bit. Hey, you're 2 months behind. I don't want to have to put a lien on your property and auction it. And then what do you know? They happen to call you 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of some of the difference when you're dealing with like residential real estate is you have these people who are professional at kind of gaming the system and dragging things out and, lining up another place before you really know what's happened so far. So in terms of that, I think for real estate, self-storage is, a great investment, basically.
Do you think at some point in the future do you see yourself expanding to other regions, or are you just kind of like, this is it for now?
So the kind of the business model that I've developed where it's basically a website, a management software, and then me following up as I need to, and taking phone calls. That's incredibly easy to do, in my opinion, is just take a couple phone calls a day and direct people to the website, or, oh, they can't figure out how to get the website to work. In the beginning, I would meet a lot of people down there to sign them up, but for the most part, it pretty much runs itself for the most part.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could see if I got another property and had it fenced in, it would be incredibly easy to duplicate.
Yeah.
This model, especially not having to train someone or have, that payroll expense just kind of bleeding you dry. I could definitely see the self-storage. Like, I think that's really the future model, is having autonomous facilities. Having the brick and mortar, because I think it's such a bubble, this industry, they're simply not going to be able to survive on price unless they have enough volume available. I mean, if you're renting out 100 storage units, having someone working there full time, it's probably not really viable.
Yeah.
Especially if you're next door to someone with 100 units, but no payroll expense. They could just, cut your throat with the pricing. So,
yeah.
I think it would be easy to replicate. I mean, I've learned a lot of lessons so far, but I think it would be something that could easily be replicated, even with maybe even in LA, the parking situation. I think there's something that could be done there with parking potentially.
Yeah.
In terms of like using an app to pay for parking at certain places. But I think the future is going to be all autonomous and maybe a couple security guards, kind of patrolling the different locations. But
yeah,
in terms of management, especially with the direction AI is going, I think it'll only be a couple of years before I can replace myself answering the phone with AI.
Yeah, they I think they may have it. It's interesting. So the agency, we do this thing called Forum. We get these, it's an international meetup, for all the realtors from around our offices from around the world. And we have different speakers. And it was fascinating. What this guy was talking about AI, and they have assistants where you call and it sounds exactly like a human. And it's like, literally was like, oh yeah, I need help scheduling this. And they're like taking the call, and they would like, oh, okay, it's this date, this time, and it would automatically get put into your calendar. So you don't have to talk with those. I'll find out what it is. I'll give it to you. It was like pretty cool.
Yeah.
Stuff.
I saw something similar to that. And it's funny because the AI, they can tell when they're talking to each other, and then they kind of like stop and then just go to like binary code, like talking to each other, like chirping. It's the creepiest thing.
That is interesting.
I mean, it's like kind of giving me goosebumps a little bit, but unfortunately, like as much as people might hate it, like that is the future. Like you could try to be like, well, I have a storage facility and I'm not going to do that. Well, I'm going to be cheaper than you.
Yep.
So
yeah,
good luck.
That's interesting. Yeah. It's like they're speaking in their own like native language. Out of being binary.
Because really the only human aspect to the facility now is me.
Yeah.
And if I can replace myself with AI, it'll actually run itself.
It's pretty
like
wild.
we're that close, especially in the self-storage space to, I mean, if you look at even some of the no key systems that are out there now, that's the biggest labor with storage facilities is overlocking people. You know, you didn't pay your rent. There's basically 2 keyholes. And say you're storing somewhere, you have your own lock, you lock it, right? But if you don't pay your rent, I also have a lock. I put on my lock. Now you can't open it until you pay. Then I unlock it. But now there's this no key lock, which I don't even know if I should be plugging them because their prices are pretty high. Give me a discount. But basically, like I could control the locks remotely. And instead of a, traditional lock, you're using your phone, an app on your phone to open up your storage unit.
Yeah.
So, I think it's really close to being fully autonomous. I know there's a couple of them out there that are minus, a really good AI assistant to run it. But from what I've seen, it's just a matter of time really before everyone has their own AI assistant. And really like people are just like pretending to work, but then they have AI doing their whole job for them.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So
it sounds like just like in your business, you're very close.
And that's the scary thing about it. And it's what kind of, is for our generation and the younger generations, really the only thing of value in the future is going to be property.
Yeah. So if you need to buy something, I'm your guy.
I mean, it's true though. Like the only thing that's going to be worth anything is property because AI is going to be able to do everything else. But AI is going to have to either rent that property or buy it.
Yeah.
So the people with a lot of property are going to be living on the moon basically. And everyone else is going to be in, waiting for their check in the mail basically.
Yeah.
From the government. But, it's one of those things. Do you resist it or do you just kind of try to, ride the wave and hope you end up on the other side? But I think that's really the future is property and real estate. Especially as AI starts to get a little bit more advanced. So
yeah.
So hit up Blake, buy some property.
Yeah, buy some property. That's interesting. It's cool hearing that you're doing so well with all of that and you got your hand on it. Did you take like any classes on it, or are you just like watching YouTube tutorials, or like how'd you get your knowledge of things with it?
So the
StorageWarsSchool.com.
So Storage Wars, I mean, I've always loved Storage Wars.
Yeah.
But really what it came down to is this is kind of a plug for them, I guess, the Self-Storage Association. It's basically like a trade group. I'm sure there's one for real estate agents where they have a trade show. You guys all go, you have speakers, you have different vendors with booths. It's like that, but for self-storage.
Is that for just the state of California, or is that a national thing?
It could be international, but it's national. I think for the most part, you don't really see any international. But yeah, it'll just be all these different storage owners, all the vendors, attorneys giving talks on different subjects. And it's really like a 4-day event. 1 day that's a trade show, 3 days that they have talks.
Did you go for like all 4 days, or you just like one?
Yeah, I go all 4 days when I go. I listen to as many talks as possible.
So you have to join the association. Are you paying like dues?
Yeah, it's like $5,000 to go to it.
Yeah.
And it's at the MGM in Vegas, which is kind of cool.
That's fun.
And
remember John, his alcohol is at the MGM.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he literally.
Really?
Yeah.
So I've drank that alcohol. Thanks, John.
Yeah, hideout, and all that stuff. Yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, I mean, it's a long event, but well worth it if you're going to get in that space because, it's it seems so abstract, like, oh, I'm going to go online, start this business. I need to find all the vendors. I need to figure out the management software. It's literally all there in one room. So it was pretty easy to put the pieces together for an autonomous facility. And there was a couple examples out there, but it would just be not really mom and pop setups. It would be more of like a corporate entity in LA with a $10 million indoor storage facility that's all autonomous. Mm-hmm. And I would kind of observe that and be like, I think you could do that with just self-storage, basically a parking lot where you're storing boats and RVs.
Yeah.
And it turns out you can pretty easily. You just have to have all the tools, all the software. It takes a while to get everything synced up, work together. But yeah, the trade show, well worth it. You meet a lot of people. You get a lot of, advice, a lot of other business owners there with, they started out with 1, now they're at 100.
Wow.
Yeah. And, it's funny because you'll see these guys and you would not think this guy owns 100 storage facilities, but
he does.
But yeah, this guy's just, you look over at the table he's playing blackjack at, he's playing like, $2,000 per hand. You're just like, wait, who is this guy?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's so crazy.
Yeah.
That's, it's just, it's fascinating. Like hearing that. Cause it's like, it's all these little like niche things like this that you would not think that it's like, oh yeah, we have an association. We have like trade shows. We do all that. But it's just like, it's fascinating to hear. I did not know about any of that until like literally you just like enlightened me on the subject. Isn't that cool?
And that's what
the more you know.
In terms of a real estate play, I think the boat and RV in particular is a great way to kind of, the traditional way is to hold a piece of property is agriculture, right? So you think, okay, I think the city is going to develop into this area. I'm going to buy the outlying area and grow ag, and maybe it doesn't make too much per acre, but in the long run, it's going to be worth a lot when a developer comes in. Mm-hmm. It's a similar thing on the self-storage, but I think it performs a little bit better than ag. You have the problem that you're dealing with people instead of trees.
Yeah.
Which that's its own problem. But, if you're kind of selective on who you take and you get some good momentum early on, I think it's a pretty interesting real estate thing. So it'd be interesting to see how it kind of plays out in the next couple of years in terms of how AI affects things.
Yeah.
I think we'll really start to see some interesting things happen with it. So
yeah. So let's talk about the Omina brothers, right?
Yeah.
So your pops is involved with that, and Uncle Mark, and always kick his butt at chess. He's gonna.
I just remember the last time I think I beat you in like 2 moves. I did the 2-move checkmate. I was like, get out.
Yeah, get out of here. Yeah. And then remember, you're like, yeah, you can't do it with black. Do you remember this? And then I did it. Do you remember that? And you're like, what? So funny. Yeah. So funny. But let's talk about it. So what do you do at Omina?
So I work on the sourcing side. Like originally when I started with the Omina, I was down in LA at the LA wholesale market. Mm-hmm. So really there's 2 sides of the business. There's the LA wholesale market and the export side. The LA wholesale market side, you're working from midnight to 10 in the morning, basically.
Wow.
Yeah. So you don't really have to worry about traffic then until you're going home.
Yeah.
Which is the worst time to worry about traffic when you're up at midnight.
Yeah.
And that lifestyle wasn't really great for trying to, really have a life.
Yeah.
So they just kind of said to me, hey, Matt, go up to the Central Valley, work on the sourcing side. Then you can kind of start a life, meet someone like Margot, who I'm lucky to have met. Yeah. So, but yeah, on the sourcing side, I mean, a lot of it's just kind of fruit selection. That's really what it comes down to is knowing the right ranches to ship, because, a lot of people think, oh, an orange is an orange. really it's not. There's a variety to it. There's a root stock. There's so many different factors to it that you all need to take into account before shipping it, or you could have massive problems, which ultimately come back to the grower. And when the grower's losing money, then everybody's in trouble, basically. So what I really go out there and try to do is proper fruit selection. And it might be a ranch that's a 1,200 acre ranch. And that ranch can produce enough fruit for us to supply multiple export programs for an entire season. Wow. I don't want to mention too many names, but some people have ranches that if we can secure those ranches for our customers, their quality is going to be better than anyone else in their market. Because a lot of guys in the export business, they'll just kind of ship whatever. And it's all about quality. Like price is important, but quality is really what maintains a business. Like you can be the cheapest guy and always get a sale.
Yeah.
But will you get a second sale? Will you get a third? Will you get a fourth? So if you're the guy who always has consistent quality and proper fruit selection, and your customers are making money, the grower's making money, and the packer's making money, then you have a business. It's easy to sell produce. It's actually incredibly easy to sell produce if you're the cheap guy. But when you have the quality and competitive pricing, you're maybe not the cheap guy, but you have competitive pricing, then you can really set up programs with that, which, when I say program, it's buying, you have a customer buying 5-6 loads a week for an entire season.
When you say season, because I know different fruits have different seasons. So
right.
let's stick with like oranges, for example. How long is a season?
So a season to me is, say on navels, for example. The season for me is going to be, and it can change year to year because a lot of people will like to start a little too early because the pricing's good. But a season to me is when you first harvest the fruit, start packing it, and when you stop harvesting that fruit. When you say, okay, I'm going to go from navels, now I'm on to Valencias. That's when the navel season is over to me. While, they're still packing and selling that domestically, as far as I'm concerned, the navel season's over. And it's now on Valencias. Like right now this is really the last week of navels, late navels, even late lanes. Now we're kind of trying to switch on to Valencias. And there might be, a kind of week in between where we're doing both. But, it's, to me, that's the season is the whole time period that commodity can be produced. You're buying beginning to end.
So for navels,
you're not coming in, leaving, getting out, buying this week, leaving this, it's the whole season.
So for navels, how many months for navels? When do you start to
for export?
Start to pick? Yeah. It's like 3, 4, 5. Like when do you start picking them? Like,
let's say it's January right now. It's probably like 5 to 6 months.
5 to 6 months.
Yeah. On orange, like that's the interesting about oranges is for the most part, it's year round. There's a couple gaps, but not really because with oranges, you have navels, you have late navels, late lanes, which are basically late navels. And then Valencias, the navel is the one with the hole on the bottom, like a little belly button. Valencias have the seeds in. So really the navels are the higher quality to me in terms of eating quality, but Valencias, when the navels start to get a little tired and old, the Valencias are just coming on. They're rock hard. They're going to hold up for the journey because this fruit we're shipping might be on the water for over a month in a lot of cases. So you need the fruit to be rock hard. It has to hold up the whole way. So
do they keep it on ice, or like what are they?
So they're all shipped in reefer containers. So different commodities have different temperatures. They have different vent settings, for airflow. And they've figured it out over the years, the right vent setting, the right temperature. But things do happen, at the shipping yard. They forget to plug it in. They get pulled out for inspection overseas and they leave the door open for 5 hours. Crazy things happen, but that's why, we put temperature recorders inside of the containers that, we can look at later to kind of figure out what happened. But yeah, it's all about maintaining a cold chain. That's what we call it, is the cold chain. Like the second you pack it from the field, it's dying. The fruit's dying. So, you put it in the bins, take the bins, you pack it. It's still hot at that point, the fruit. Then by the time you finish packing it, you want to pre-cool that fruit for sure before you ship it. That's where we actually see a lot of problems, is guys don't pre-cool the fruit. Their packing schedule is so intense and they're trying to ride it right to the last minute that they don't pre-cool the fruit fully. And if you don't pre-cool the fruit, it's just like jumping from the pool into a hot tub or the hot tub into the pool like that. It just damages the skin. Yeah. So yeah, it's all about proper cold chain management. And these packing houses, most of them, that's where they put the fruit into the box or bag them. They're so advanced at this point and it's so scientific that they know exactly how to do everything perfectly. But you'd be surprised. You see some crazy stuff sometimes. You're just like, what? So
I want to back up just a bit. So when you're looking at these different ranches, I'm assuming that you have, again, you don't, without naming names, you have like a good handful of people that you consistently work with. What's stopping like another company coming in underneath you to like try to get that deal? Like how, like
they could,
how is it, like, how are you setting yourself up competitively to always maintain the business with these ranches?
I would almost compare it to like real estate, right? Like, it's like, say you have a house that's worth $10 million and some green real estate agent comes up and says, let me sell that house for you. Are you going to go with him or are you going to go with the guy who's sold everyone else's house already and has been doing it for 25 years? It's like the other guy might be like, oh, I only take 1% commission, but what else is going to happen? You know what I mean? So it's a lot of it's relationship for sure. Like, people know that these deals always land. But like anything in business, like someone could always go out from under you, but in such a relationship driven business, they just don't do it because it'll all come back around full circle eventually. They're going to end up needing you eventually for something else. And if they screwed you over, then why would you come back and help them later, basically?
And then how many different like fruits and vegetables do you guys like work with? Like offhand.
Oh, that's a good question. If you look at the if you combine the LA wholesale market into it too, probably easily over 100.
Wow.
Me personally, I've probably dealt with 25 different items. But for the most part, the vast majority were grapes and citrus. Those are the two things we really specialize in. But, we'll do cherries. We'll do other things too. But grapes and citrus are really the bread and butter for sure.
So speaking of like citrus, because 2-part question. One, what are the other states that you are competing against? And this kind of leads to part 2. California oranges and Florida oranges, right? So like, what's the deal with that? You know what I mean? They're like,
Well, Florida oranges isn't really a thing anymore because they have the Asian citrus psyllid and they didn't really manage it as a state, and it just wiped out all of their citrus production in terms of like fruit that you can put on the shelf. Like all of their oranges for the most part are growing juice now. So growing oranges for juice, like if you have free water and cheap land, I guess it's worth it, and a lot of time. But yeah, in California, no one even comes really close to being able to like compete with California in terms of like the things we're growing here in the Central Valley, just because of the optimal growing conditions. Like they call it the Central Valley because really it's, if you look at a map of California, there's a massive valley in the middle. Yeah. It used to be a lake.
A lake, yep.
And then they drained it into the ocean.
Yep. And
it just has the richest soil underneath. And really you don't have that anywhere else in the world. Like I think back in college, they said we produce like 70% of the world's fruit. I don't know about vegetable, but fruit.
Yeah.
And then, you have like Washington, they're doing apples, some cherries. But yeah, no other states are really competing with California, but other countries definitely are.
Yeah. How's it like internationally? Like when you go and you sell stuff to like different countries, like how does that all playing out?
I mean, that can be the problem with some countries is their pricing so cheap that it's like hard to say no to it. But the quality's not there. The name isn't there. Like, in other countries, people see, as much as they like to downplay it in the US, like people want to see made in the USA. Like if you ship an orange to Japan and China ships an orange to Japan, they want the one from the US because in China, they don't know what chemicals are being used. There's a lot of reasons probably why they would want the US one. But for quality, you can't really compete with the US. Pricing, yeah, definitely. We have that problem here, especially on avocados. You'll see not necessarily with Mexican avocados, but from Chile and Peru, they're just so much cheaper that it's really hard to say no to them. Like if you're going to pay, $45 for a box of avocados, but you can get that same box for $25 from Peru.
Yeah.
It's hard to say no, but they don't eat as good. There's not as much oil in them. But for some people who just want to like have the appearance of like, oh, I have avocados available. I have guacamole in my restaurant. If they can get away with that, they'll probably, try it out at least.
So what countries do you do business with?
I mean, we do business with
everybody.
Pretty much most countries except Europe.
Yeah.
Because Europe's just a weird market. I mean, I think it's just one of those markets that's so old that they've really already kind of figured out how they want to eat, where they're going to get it from. It's a lot of, Trump's dealing with the tariff stuff, but I think there's a lot of kind of trade deals that have already kind of existed for a long time. Like especially in Holland and their whole greenhouse industry, like they kind of already have it figured out there. And if you go into that market without knowing what's going on, they're likely to burn you for sure.
Yeah.
But in these other markets where, in Asia in particular, I mean, they just want quality. That's all they want. Like the fruit we're exporting, like this is what amazes me to this day. I'll go to the grocery store in the Central Valley and, I'm in produce, so I'll look at the produce section, any grocery store I go to, and I'll see grapes, all brown stems, a bunch of shatter in the bag, small berry sizes, they're shriveled up, they're tired. And I'm just like, they're literally growing these 5 minutes from here.
Why are they like this?
Yeah, why don't we have the best quality grapes in the world in the grocery store that's right next to where they're being grown? But it's because we won't pay for them. That's the reality of it. Is in export, they'll pay more for them. And in the Central Valley, people aren't willing to pay for them, I guess, so they don't get them. So to me, that's what I found is the most interesting thing about, the impact of the export business, and particularly when comparing it to the grocery stores here, is we really don't care about quality too much here compared to other countries. So the countries that do care about quality, that's where,
well, like I was
you're
saying,
gonna get paid.
Like I was saying when we were in the car coming this way, back in Greece, I was mentioning the Greek salad thing. And how, I literally had a Greek salad for every single meal for like the couple weeks that I was out there a couple summers ago. And it's because of that. Like there's a different quality of like how great that, that is. So it's interesting. I just,
Yeah.
And then
it's crazy.
It's
and then I almost wonder if it's like a cycle that we've put ourselves in where the grocery store thinks the customers won't buy grapes, but really the customers don't want to buy those grapes. And they've set such a precedent where they're going to have low quality grapes on the shelves for so long that people just don't buy them. But if they actually got quality grapes, put them out there, I don't think people, if the price is 50 cents higher for a bag of grapes, that's going to really change their decision when you're buying grapes. Like, it's all about the quality. Like, oh, did I eat that? Was it good? Okay, I'll buy it again. But in the domestic market, from what I've seen in produce, is people are really short-sighted. Like, they'll start the season way too early a lot of the times, pay too much for it, put it on the shelf, charge the customers a high price, and the eating quality is horrible. And they have a good first week, and then nobody comes back to buy it again, because why would you? If you buy a bag of grapes or berries, go home, they don't eat good, you're probably done for this year on grapes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that's the difference in export. And that's one of the main things I do is I'm managing, okay, are we ready to start on this yet? Should we do, and especially on grapes, there's so many varieties, is when do you switch to this next variety? What's the quality like now?
So how do you keep your thumb on the pulse of that?
It's
a constant moving market then. So are you like, do you end up going down to LA and like looking through there and seeing like what's starting to pop out now, and you can see what company is starting to pop those out now? And then do you do like a secret drive by their ranch and be like, oh, look, they're popping out like those, and like, oh, well, we got to do this now. Like,
I mean, sometimes you do some drive-bys for sure.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they're more than happy to invite you out to show it to you if you're willing to go. So, I mean, it's not a lot of work. You just say, hey, what are all the varieties that are coming out, and when can I see them? And then you just simply go out, look at them. You talk to the field guy, because when you talk to field guys versus sales guys, it's a totally different story, basically.
Yeah.
So you talk to the field guy, you say, okay, how many weeks until this is ready? They say 3 weeks. Okay, 3 weeks on the Autumn Royal, move on to the next one. And then you just kind of, have your plan of what order you're going to switch into what variety. And yeah, you see it on the field a lot of the time. But you always do have to wait until after they've packed it to really see, how they've packed it. Is it the same quality you saw in the field? Is the sizing correct? There's so many different parameters, so many different things that can kind of go wrong. But for the most part, it's like, if I gave you a plate with, different grapes on it, you'd be able to tell me which one's the good one. You just have to actually go do it,
Okay.
It's like, this one tastes good. This one tastes sour. Don't ship the sour.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys don't go through that effort. They just say, ship it, ship it, ship it. And then they wonder what happened, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're not taking that extra step.
Yeah, it's so easy. You just try it.
Just try it. Yeah.
Just literally try it. See if it tastes good.
So I thought this was interesting, talking with you. I remember this conversation, you and your pops, like a handful of years ago, where there's like really cool fruit that is like, like pink lemons and like all these like different varieties of fruits that you normally wouldn't think are out there, but they are there. What's the market like for those types of fruits? Are people like, holding out to buy the pink lemons versus the yellow? Like why are these being made?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the niche items, like,
and what are they? Like, what are some examples besides like the pink
so
lemons?
like the variegated lemon, that's the technical term for it, but they call it a pink lemon, but they switched to calling it variegated because it's not always pink. Sometimes it's a little bit pink. Sometimes it's not pink at all, but there's usually green stripes on them. And,
are they more like sour or more sweet than a regular lemon?
It's like the same, but they are about twice as expensive. So, I mean, when you're looking at just one piece being twice as expensive, you're like, oh, that's not bad. But when you're talking about a full truckload of it, you're talking like $100,000 difference or more.
So do you see a lot of people buying these?
It's a lot of risk.
You see
No. Yeah, like
who's buying them? Like what's the like?
Just like specialty places will buy them. Like you see finger limes too. I really like finger limes a lot.
What are finger limes? Like it's literally the shape of a finger. But
it's the shape of a finger, and when you crack it open,
it looks like a pea pod or something like that.
It looks like a pea pod a little bit, but it's usually brown or purple.
Yeah.
And you crack it open, and there's little beads of basically lime juice in there that you could sprinkle out these little beads. And it's amazing. It eats good. Like if you put it on a little piece of sushi or like, you could really put it on so many different things. Problem is they're really expensive. They don't really hold up. They don't ship well, which is a major factor on a lot of these specialty things is you can't ship them without them going bad. And then when you combine that with the high price, it's a recipe for disaster. But yeah, in terms of like even business wise, like if you were to, and I've made this mistake for sure, if you focus on the niche things, you're wasting a lot of your time. Because would you rather be selling a pallet of something or a full load of something else? Like, yeah, the pallet might be a higher profit margin, but if you focus on selling full loads, you're going to be way better off. Like, selling pallets, it's just not, it's not worth your time.
Yeah. You probably see these at like specialty, like restaurants for like maybe cocktails or like special foods, or when they're trying to like give a persona or a vibe with you going there. Is that where you kind of see?
Yeah. You see them at places like that. You'll see, at the wholesale market, chefs would come and they would just buy them, but they wouldn't buy that many.
What's like the weirdest, coolest one that you've seen? Or like, you're like, whoa. Like,
I think the best fruit out there right now is the yellow dragon fruit. It's kind of rare. It only comes from like Ecuador, Peru, a couple other countries. But it's basically a dragon fruit, right? But it's yellow, the skin. Incredibly sweet on the inside. And I used to sell them at the wholesale market. And I would eat like one every day.
Wow.
And it just... I felt like I was so healthy when I was eating them. Best digestion. But you can't move a lot of volume of them. Like, it would take me 2 weeks to sell a full load of them.
So are a lot of these like hybrids? Is that what, or how are they like, how do they come to be?
I think a lot of times they just exist in the wild and then people just kind of
find them,
breed them basically to like become bigger.
Yeah.
But I mean, like in terms of business, like the best business for produce is volume. You don't want to be messing around with like a box or a pallet or a load of something. You want to be like moving like, bananas, like apples, like hardware, that are just proven. You can just ship like 20 loads of them a week to a retailer.
Mm-hmm.
Like the finger limes, like it'll be like you could sell it to Erewhon. If they say no,
kind of SOL.
Yeah. You're screwed basically. So yeah, I think the niche things are fun, but I wouldn't try to focus too much on them. Like if there's one thing I've learned is don't focus on the niche things. Like focus on the proven items that sell at volume. Try to be the best at those items. Try to secure the best quality on those items, the high volume items.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's really where you want to focus your time in the produce business. Even, I hear people, they'll be like, oh, I want to get into farming. I want to grow this. I want to grow that. And I'm just like, grow oranges, grow pomegranates, grow things that are proven. Don't try to like, be like, I'm going to get in the finger lime. I'm going to plant 20 acres of finger limes.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Disaster.
Yeah.
So
another interesting thing that again, your dad taught me about, and I find it fascinating is grafting with trees.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a lot of these ranches like having to like make quick changes and be like, oh, we got to get rid of all the grapefruits and turn them into orange trees, and like you see they're just like grafting?
We just did that actually.
Yeah. Can you explain to people for those who don't know what grafting is? Like
Yeah, so I mean, basically, we were growing some grapefruit melagolds, and I've been like talking with my dad about it for a while. Like, I mean, I think the melagold's a good piece of fruit. It's probably the best eating grapefruit next to a cocktail grapefruit. But it's just like I said, with focusing on volume, focusing on marketability. The Meligold, you might see it at Whole Foods, but that's about it. You're not going to see it at Safe Mart. You're not going to see it at Ralph's, at Albertsons.
Yeah.
Maybe you will, but not really.
Yeah.
And then there's the export demand for it. And kind of the direction I saw things going was it's one of these items. And the other problem is too many people are handling it. If one guy controlled all the Melagolds, it would be a good business. But when you have 10 different packing houses all trying to compete with each other on a niche item that doesn't really have a lot of options for, selling it, they just are all cannibalizing each other on the pricing. So I said, you know what, we should, before it's too late, switch to oranges. So we just went through and you basically just cut all the limbs off the trees and you take, budwood from the orange trees, which is like, when you see like a new stem coming out, basically. There's a certain notch you cut it on. Then you go up to the grapefruit tree, cut that. You put a little growth hormones, kind of. It's some. In ancient times they use honey. Put honey on it. Jab it in there, tape it on, and then basically it's like if you amputated your finger and had like a transplant or a transplant organ, like eventually your body, just like the tree, will like grow with it. So you're basically just, at that point, you're on that root stock, which was an orange root stock to start with for the grapefruit. I think it was even like, it was just a trifoliate rootstock. And now they're orange trees. And we did that, I think, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago. Maybe less than that. But yeah, and they grow fine. I mean, you wouldn't even know.
And it has to be like per family. So you can do like, it has to be all citrus and like citrus trees versus like apple trees. Right? Like it all has to be like...
I think so. I'm sure there's some people who are like experts on it who could like do crazy things with it. But I think it has more to do with the rootstock. Like, because a lot of the times in any of these things that are being grown, it's all about the rootstock. So like even on avocados, like they're growing avocados in the Central Valley now. But the way they're getting away with it is they'll have the green skin rootstock stock, like a bacon avocado, which typically people don't want to eat
Mm-hmm.
because there's no oil. It's just not worth anything. Like, so, but the Haas is.
Mm.
And particularly now the gem avocado, which is basically a Haas avocado. So they'll start out with the bacon rootstock because it's a lot hardier and can survive the temperature up in the Central Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll basically graft onto that the gem avocado. So like that's the real reason for grafting. Like even Margot at her house, she has a tree with 5 different, there's plums, there's apricots, there's different things growing on it all in the same tree.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the real reason you would do it is you get a rootstock that can survive those conditions and then you put on
the one that you want. Interesting.
So
now with that, so you have the bacon, like for example, you have like the bacon avocado, and then you put on, what's the one again? The
gem.
The gem.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you have that and that versus just a gem rootstock and a gem avocado, are there like, does it taste different because this one has a different rootstock versus this one? I'm getting real technical about it. It might,
but not at a noticeable amount. Like,
yeah.
I don't think like someone might be like it might all be in their head, even like they're like, oh yeah, I do think it tastes different. But it's almost like, I think if you tasted an avocado from 2 different trees of the same rootstock, everything's the same. If one's a little sunburnt, one's not, like you might detect something, but not to a point where it would really matter.
Yeah.
But I think that's, where, especially in the Central Valley, like if you get the rootstock wrong, if you get that rootstock wrong, like you're basically, wasting a lot of time because it'll take probably 5 to 7 years before you actually get any production on that fruit. So it could take you a while to figure out that like, oh, all my fruit's just dropping on the ground. Like what's going on? So there's a lot of risk involved in, picking the right rootstock. Like, and the thing is, a lot of the research has been done. So
yeah,
a lot of these universities are doing the research. I mean, between us, how much I really trust those, I don't know. Like, if you were a new grower today, I would say don't be the guinea pig. Like, watch what the other people are doing and just copy what's working.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
But,
makes sense.
Especially like from a real estate investor point of view.
Yeah.
Like, don't try to like come up with something new. Just be like, all right, what rootstock works? Plug it in and it's no problem. Yeah, you don't notice a difference. I mean, you might in some cases on oranges in particular, different rootstocks, there's different characteristics. And maybe when that fruit's going to be ready in the season, but a lot of that stuff you go into it knowing that already.
Yeah.
Like there's already the data that's been there. So
it's already out there.
Yeah. It's not
you don't
like
have to like go and experiment at all.
Yeah. You're not going to like discover something, like unless you're like at the university level.
Orange.
Yeah. This orange tree in my backyard.
Marshmallows. Yeah.
Yeah. I have the best orange tree in my yard. I'm going to name it.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Well, Matt, this has been really cool, dude. Yeah. Learned a lot actually about just everything. So for contact information for Highway 65, cool if I just put it below in the description.
Put it below. It's Highway 65 Open Storage. Again, that's HWY65OpenStorage.com.
Cool. Yeah. And then if anybody needs some good eats in the fruit side too, you can reach out to you. Help them out.
Yeah.
And then again,
only full loads though. I don't want
only full loads. None of this
no
niche
one
stuff.
or 2 boxes.
No lime fingers or whatever.
Don't hit me up for finger limes.
Yeah, finger limes. Yeah. Well, again, and congrats to you and Margot, and thank you for asking me, dude.
Yeah, you're gonna have to lift me up on that chair.
Yeah, dude. Oh boy. Here we go. All right. Well, thank you all for watching. Make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really does help us out here at the Red Room. And we'll tune in next time. Thanks. See ya. Woo!